Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of PCP No Boosters Needed. It's a pleasure to be here with you. We are reviewing our January tournament from PLC, and I am Juhadre, joined by Zeno and the Snurks.
Hello, everyone. Good to not see you, but speak again.
So we are short a little bit on our, I don't want to call it staff, but our typical lineup here on PCP. Shazbot had some stuff that he was doing this weekend, and so we're missing him. But Zeno, this might give us a little bit more streamline discussion where we don't have to wait as much. I don't know if that's going to be better or worse though, because I've always enjoyed Shazbot's point of view, especially as one of the competitors in PLC.
I am of the opinion that it's always, I think 2 to 3 is a solid number for just any podcast because, it can be kind of hard to just talk on your own, but having 2 or 3 people to bounce points off of is
Mm-hmm.
always good. So, yeah. Then again, my entire podcast experience is either with 2 people or 3, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, we're gonna review our January tournament first, and then we'll get into our discussions and other topics. But Zeno, last time that we did PCP, I said that the review was the most fun I've had rewatching our games. And I think that is still true, but rewatching January, I think we saw the closest finals that we've ever had. Did you get a chance to review those games?
Yeah, I did get a chance to review. I didn't have time to watch all of them all the way through, but I did review the matches. And yeah, that very last one, it's crazy how close it was. Like, they were all the way up to the Nexus turrets, and then we're able to turn it around.
Yeah, and we'll get to that point because I have a lot to say about that. But our semifinal, I always forget that we moved to the semis format, and that semi that we were able to stream was also very, very fun to watch. The attitudes of the players were just so fun and so light. The Mithril Knights versus Royal Blue Esports Team 1, they met in the middle and just started dancing. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if you remember
remember
that.
that.
Yeah, see, I had completely forgotten that. And so when the game started, I was just laughing and giggling because, what a great way to start off the most competitive part of the PLC tournament. So
Yeah,
it made me laugh. I thought the attitude of these teams was very good.
yeah, it shows that even though they are there to compete and to win, it's also important to focus on having fun.
Yeah. And especially at the beginning when, Leona got the ward down, they had everything that they thought they needed and just having a good time. So that set the tone for what was an exciting game for sure. My what I like to do is I'll give kind of an idea of what I think the each team focuses on, and then a few examples through the time of the game. And for the Mithril Knights, were on the blue side. I noticed that they had really good reactions, and they played to the strength of their champions. They were able to move around the map quickly every time something was going wrong. And if I remember right, the last time we talked about Mithril Knights, I said that they stuck to the plan, they trusted the system, and the way that they play their champions supports that theory because it's always toward the strength of what they have drafted.
Yeah, playing towards your champion's strengths is definitely crucial when it comes to League of Legends. If you can focus on what they do well and play to that action plan, that's how you execute it to win. But I think that's just esports in general. That's the best approach to take. Like, if you think of like old school StarCraft, where it was Zerg rushing was like very, very powerful if you did it right, but if you got countered, you pretty much had little to no chance of coming back. It came down to knowing not only the strengths of your characters and playing accordingly, but to also recognize the strengths of your opponents and to try and counter those strengths so that you can get ahead.
Yeah. Some examples of that from the Mithril Knights. There was a fight up around the Grubs where a Fear Beyond Death stopped Ornn from casting the second part of his ultimate. So the Urgot got the spear on, I want to say Viego, and sucked him in and got the grinder, and the fear that came after stopped Ornn from casting his ultimate, and they ended up getting the kill because of it, and it was super, super cool. I don't know if it was intentional, but it looked intentional and it looked really good.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's the thing is like, and that's a good example of not only recognizing enemy strengths, but also recognizing their weaknesses, because Ornn has a really powerful game-changing ult that can really make a difference in a team fight, especially in a narrow space. But if someone can interrupt Ornn and stop him from activating the second part of it, then it's little to no use.
Exactly. And so that was one example of them using their champion effectively. The next one was there was a kill on the bottom lane where Miss Fortune just doubled up a minion and killed the Kai'Sa just instantly. I mean, it wasn't a one shot as we call it, but she timed it right. I think there was even a flash burned, but she knew the direction and the way you cast that spell on a low health minion. If it kills the target, it bounces. And she got the kill with it, and it was really cool to watch.
Yeah, and that takes what I like about Miss Fortune's double up is that it has a lot of skill expression that gets overlooked because it's a point and click spell, but it can be pretty hard to time and to aim that properly. Like, I've played my fair share of Miss Fortune, and whenever I try to use the Q, sometimes it'll just hit the enemy, then fall straight to the ground and not even bounce, even though I thought the enemy was in range. So, timing that just right can be very challenging to do.
I have some friends who would run Sion Miss Fortune bottom, and Sion would use his E, that shout, to. I have some friends who would play Sion Miss Fortune bottom, and they would try and combo the EQ. So Sion would scream at the minion to throw it, and they would time it with the double up so that when the minion died with the double up right there, it would chunk whatever champion also got hit with the slow from the minion being thrown.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know how well it worked or how long they ran that combo, but it was pretty funny.
I've seen some other funny ones too, where there was a combo where it's Syndra and Zilean, where Zilean puts a bomb on a minion, and then Syndra grabs it and chucks it at the enemy right before it explodes.
I love that.
Then there's also the Veigar Nasus combo, where Veigar puts down his stun, and then Nasus builds full AP, and the E is roughly the size of the stun, so they can't escape the damage.
That's rough.
Yeah.
I love little combos like that. They make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
So then on the other side of our semifinal, Royal Blue Esports, their big thing was the wombos. They were able to just turn fight after fight after fight after losing the initial engage with ultimate wombos, and it happened like 4 different times. So the first one happened at 1749 of our semifinals. Check us out on YouTube, by the way. And it was, they were fighting at the Grubs, and what, I can't remember what ultimates they used, but that's where it is they were losing a fight. And I remember. It was the same thing with the Urgot, how Urgot got the fear onto the Ornn, but Galio had ulted the Viego that got sucked in with the Fear Beyond Death. And he had made it up there, and he interrupted a flash and everything with the Justice Punt. It was just so cool to see them turn the fight after already losing the fight, supposedly. And that was the first one, was at 17 minutes and 49 seconds of our video.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's definitely really cool to see those wombo combos, especially with a champion like Galio, who really can just run in and follow up after someone lands some CC, because the Galio ult has a lot of wind up, so you have to time it right.
Yeah. And setting it up, that's one of the reasons why Camille, Jarvan, Amumu, these types of champions are really good with the Gallios because they lock people into place so that that long windup doesn't miss its opportunity.
Exactly.
The next example was at 21 minutes and 11 seconds. There's this, it's a 35-second spread where they fight from the bottom lane to the dragon into the red side blue jungle. And it just fought, it was bedlam, I think is the best way to describe it. And it started out with Mithril Knights getting the advantage, and Royal Blue was just able to swing it back again with layering their wombos. So if you get a chance, if you can't watch the whole video, at least watch 21 from 21 minutes to 22 minutes. You won't be disappointed. It was beautiful, beautiful to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Two other really cool things that I remember now that I watched through it again is Mackles, the bot laner for Royal Blue, was playing Kai'Sa and had, I want to say, between 80 and 150 health and survived, first of all. But instead of going back, hung around the fight and helped secure 3 more kills at that 150 health. And it was crazy. The spacing and the way he was able to maneuver the champion. That's at 23 minutes and 37 seconds. Just outrageous how he was able to do that.
Hey, yeah, ultimately, like, a big part of succeeding in League of Legends is you really, really got to limit test. You got to know what your limits are, push those limits, and then push past the limits to know when you've gone too far. And as you practice and you push those limits and get a feel for it, you can better work around that and know how you can make the most of your, pushes and how you can make the most out of different situations before you go back.
Yeah. Beautiful demonstration of that from Mackles on the Kai'Sa. And then on the side of Mithril Knights, their mid laner was playing Sylas, and he was just constantly dodging things. Again, mastery of their champion. He would steal a Viego ult and just jump away almost instantly. It was crazy to watch him do it. He dodged so many things through the whole game. He would use his E, the abscond, to dodge the Gaping Maw from Viego or the Justice Punch from Galio. And then he's surrounded by 3 enemies. He would hijack the, I think it's called Heartbreaker, the Viego ultimate, and then just hop over a wall and escape. And watching him do that and how quickly he's able to press those buttons and redirect his cursor, it's just masterful. So go watch that game, everybody. That was Mithril Knights versus Royal Blue Esports for our semifinal that we streamed. That's on our YouTube. Now we get to the finals, and Zeno, you said you were able to review that, and it was close. Do you know how close it was?
Oh, it was insanely close. Like, very, very close for the gold, almost about to lose, and then pushed around and quickly pushed last second to be able to secure the win.
Yeah. I timestamped a couple things. The first is the first 3 kills for each team were trades. It was just 1-to-1. And you know what? It was actually only 2. Top lane, Pianobra changed from jungle to top lane playing Ambessa against Kodo Draco's Ornn. And first blood went to Ambessa, but she dove under the turret and got slowed and died immediately after.
Yeah.
And then I think it was just a few minutes later, the same exact thing happened. He dove under turret and Ornn slowed him or knocked him up or something like that and died under turret. And that was, I made a joke with Shazbot that was their gentleman's agreement, that the 2 of them would only kill the other if they were going to die as well. And at 28 minutes of video time, it was 17 to 16 kills. Okay, and for perspective, that's 18 and a half minutes of game time. That's 2 kills a minute almost. Okay, and the difference in gold was 700. And it never really shifted much after that. It was that close for the entire 47 minutes, I think it was.
Yeah, the thing is that League of Legends, just generally speaking, is a very snowball heavy game where you get the lead, you push the lead, minimize your mistakes, and then make the most of those decisions in order to keep the lead, push the lead further ahead to the point where there's not much that the enemy can do. Some people use the term, hitting the enemy with your wallet. You just
Mm-hmm.
get a bunch of money and then use the increased stats to win.
I love that phrase, by the way. I like using it.
Yeah. So to see it's so close showed that both teams were, while they were having fun, they were taking these finals seriously because they were playing in a way where they were always trying to push to get that advantage, but then the other team would push back, just leading to a constant clash. And, in PLC, I think we see our fair share of snowballing in finals.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, really entertaining and really cool to see a match so close.
Agreed. And I put down another few timestamps here, everyone, to help illustrate this. 43 minutes, 45 seconds. Team Unknown breaks the base to the point that there were no Nexus turrets. There was an open Nexus at 43 minutes and 45. There was a Baron steal at 35 minutes and 20 seconds, and I believe it was a 47-minute game. So the open Nexus for almost 4 minutes. So we actually saw the first respawn, the turrets respawn. I didn't think we were going to ever see one because most games end when Nexus turrets are down. So that was exciting as well. But for the whole thing, it was neck and neck and neck. There were a couple of things that I wanted to bring up as well with our teams. We've known Team Unknown for a long time. Their chaotic style of fighting everybody usually ends up working out, especially with the composition they ran this particular game. The Swain Calavir was piloting was doing some heavy work, especially with the Tarek from Kiroro, which is a PLC famous pick.
I feel like not specifically in the PLC, but like with League of Legends in general, for whatever reason that I don't understand why, a lot of players seem to underestimate Swain as a champion.
Yeah. Which I want to talk more about that because we're going to get into the patch notes later in the episode, but remember that.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, remember that because I concur. There was a huge push at 32 minutes and 54 seconds that I believe led to the first breaking of the inhibitors. I'm pretty sure Team Unknown took Royal Blue's inhibitors 3 separate times, broke middle and bottom 3 different times. And the first one started around 32 minutes. But that's where everything starts to kind of flip because the Baron steal at 35 minutes was Royal Blue taking it. It was this, man, did you see that? Do you remember how it happened?
The one where Royal I think you'll need to remind me, sorry.
So it was crazy because Team Unknown had just won a team fight. I think they had 2-3 kills and they rushed the Baron and they got it low. They even took away the blast cone and had someone running interference. But it was Mackles this time. All of Royal Blue switched their roles and Mackles was on Evelynn. He managed to sneak to the back of the pit, flashed over, and ult smited. And because Evelynn's ultimate is an execute, it dealt bonus damage plus the smite. So at like 2,600 or some silly number, he snagged it. And it popped him back over the Baron wall. So it was completely free. Didn't even have to run away. It was so cool.
Evelynn's ults can be terrifying for multiple reasons. Like, it has a lot of utility on top of the damage, because not only can you do damage in front of you, but you can also use it to teleport and to get away. But I've also seen Evelynn's, use the ultimate to just secure the distance between them and an enemy by ulting backwards toward the enemy.
Yeah, super fun to do that. When was the last time that happened for you? Because I don't play against a lot of Evelyns, but I know it's possible.
I don't see it happen often because, in my experience, many more Evelyns would rather use as an execute to escape. When I do see it, it's because it's someone with some insane amount of mastery on the champion.
I'll agree with that. So yeah, the ultimate winner at the end of the day was Royal Blue. There was this insane team fight where it looked like Team Unknown had the edge, but what they didn't they actually, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, they assassinated Mackles and they got one more kill, but they didn't touch the Samira. And that was the problem because she was able to stack the Inferno trigger. Because there were four of them there, she just like queued all four and got to ult instantly and just tore the entire team to shreds. And because it was so late in the game, like I said, 46, 47 minutes, they got that ace and were able to 3-man push with the Baron buff into the base and take the win. And it was one of the closest, most exciting finals that we've ever had. So go watch that because it's great game.
Yeah, always exciting to see just some big damage like that come in and to see turnarounds.
Absolutely. So, congratulations to Royal Blue Esports for winning January and to our other semifinalist teams. That was the Corny Cobblers and Team Unknown, as well as Mithril Knights. So good job to them. And we hope to see you guys all back in February again. Are there any other thoughts that you have about our semis and finals?
I just think it was so cool to see how close it was, and the reason why I think that's great is because it shows that both teams have the potential to win. And,
Mhm.
because when one team just stomps the other, it's not like, you can always learn from the experience, but it's not as encouraging. It can be kind of discouraging when that happens because you feel like there's such a huge gap. But when it's a game as close as that, yeah, it still hurts to lose. But then you realize, okay, this is something I can overcome. This is something I can be better at and,
Mhm.
succeed with.
And I want to lead that into our next discussion point. Okay, now that there was the gap there, keep going.
Yeah, that was perfect. I'll just go ahead and slide that in between when you forgot and Garrett's last thoughts on the tournament, and we are good to just move on to the next section.
Wonderful.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. So going along with that thought, Zeno, about pushing to the end and making it close and never really giving up, I wanted to talk a little bit before we get into patch notes about the culture in League of Legends and the amount of hyperbole that is in our nomenclature, our traditional way of speaking and talking about the game. And you and I discussed this very, very briefly this morning before coming on to record, and I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the phrases that we as players kind of throw around without really thinking about what it means.
Mhm.
So some of the examples are that champ is garbage, or that guy's inting, this game is doomed, that's broken, and you got 1 HP, this guy got one shot. Those type of terms, I don't think any of them are actually correct.
There are definitely situations where I feel like people use those terms incorrectly or just in a way that doesn't make too much sense for the context and almost like so here's the thing. In the Smash Bros community, there's this thing called no Johns, okay?
Okay.
And the idea behind no Johns is like, it's making fun of like just to pick a random name, some guy named John, right?
Mm.
And him always having some kind of excuse every time he loses. Like, Oh, my
Ah,
controller was acting up. Oh, I accidentally did this and it caused this to happen. Like, it's never his fault. He always comes up with an excuse. So people would use the phrase no Johns to be like, stop giving an excuse for the reason why you lost. I think
interesting.
we definitely have a Johns problem in the league community where people always look for excuses to blame the fact that they lost and to use it as an excuse.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. And those being that this was OP or what I had or what my teammate picked is garbage.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like that's where the hyperbole comes from, in my opinion.
Okay. And so we're not the authorities on this, but I do wonder if you have any thoughts that can help our listeners to avoid the pitfall of such hyperbole and to keep the mental strong and push through like our finalists did in January.
I think it's, important to recognize when something is strong, but shouldn't be a situation of like, wow, that's strong and broken and that's ridiculous. But instead, okay, I notice this is a very strong technique that works. What did I do wrong and what can I do better next time? It's about that self reflection that makes a difference that'll help you improve at the game.
I concur. I think that another part of that is understanding that Riot doesn't want things to be overpowered or broken or garbage. It's never the intent. And so when people say that something is garbage, we have to look at why people think that. And a great example that Azael on the dive talks about every single time is, do you remember when Malzahar and the what was that thing called? Ardent Sensor were the most overpowered things and won worlds? I think it was 2018.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Is that the one when Arden Sensor like buffed minion damage or something?
It didn't buff minion damage, but what it turned out the meta was whoever got it first won because it gave so much attack speed to these hyper carries. So you would go
That's what it
Lulu or
was.
Karma or Nami with Jinx or Kog'Maw, Tristana, and because you got so much attack speed from that item, you would actually gank bottom early to rush the level 2 and get as much gold as possible into your support rather than your carry, because then the steroid would just be too strong. And that was a problem. That was a broken thing for sure. But during the same era, Azael would tell some of the pros because he was there casting and everything and say, "Hey, have you played Malzahar? Tramp is super strong." And they would always respond with, "Nah, man, that guy's a garbage champion." And he was like, "Okay, that's fine. But you better play it before it gets nerfed." "Nah, man, it's a garbage champion." And then a few patches later, it got nerfed. Then after the nerf, Faker in Korea played it, won, and everyone was like, "Holy crap, this champ is busted." And it became the meta.
Funny enough, I have a personal experience that was super similar. So,
Let's hear that. I think that would be great.
yeah, so back in, I believe it was early in season 2, okay? My
Mm-hmm.
friend was talking to me, was all like, yo, you gotta try APE, it's really strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, sure. So I gave it a shot. I tried. I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. It's really strong. I can't get poked out of lane because W is so strong. I'm doing free poke damage with my Q. This is great. I
Yeah.
remember I would do that, and then I had one teammate rage at me telling me that APE was such a garbage build and that I shouldn't be bothering with it, and I was trolling for playing it. When lo and behold, later in that Worlds, I believe it was, one of the pro teams got a pentakill with APE. And
Yeah.
suddenly everybody's playing it, everybody thinks it's broken.
Yeah. And what I want to where I want to steer that conversation is what our perception can't be based on just other people's idea, right? There has to be a reason people think it isn't good. And so I guess the what I want to say is everybody try the thing. and give it the real try, right? Don't just play it once in a ranked game and get your teeth kicked in. Play a few normals, get used to it, test it out in the practice tool, look up some builds and things and see if it is viable, and then give it the try. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But to just say that's not good or that's broken because like you have to have reasons to believe this.
Exactly.
And I want to address the other things, right? Nothing is as doomed as it sounds in the beginning. Teammate failed the invade and gave first blood. Game's doomed to surrender 15. No, man, come on. There are so many other mechanics in the game, right? Now, especially now that feats isn't based on first blood anymore, it's first 3 kills.
Yeah.
Great change, by the way. I agree with that one wholeheartedly. But to say it's doomed is almost never actually the case. Now, I will say there are some examples where it is doomed, where let's say your invade fails so tragically that the enemy carry gets the pentakill. I have seen some of those videos. That might be doomed, right? Especially if all of those kills had assists with the support and the jungler, then they're also ahead on gold. But they don't get a whole lot of experience. So if you can just farm well and keep up in levels, then maybe only half an item difference won't be that big of a deal. So, keep your head in the game, and nothing is truly doomed until it's actually over. I don't think.
Yeah, there's a League player known for his Vel'Koz known as Azap. I think that's
Okay.
how you pronounce his name. But that's his whole thing is he's been pushing a no FF change in the League community and has just really been focused on it's not over until it's actually over. And he says, I believe he says 99% of games can be turned around and won. And he just brings up the point of, you lose every game you surrender.
It's just like that quote in basketball, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. Good for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was funny because I remember there was this was back when you needed 4 votes to surrender, and there was one time when him and the Baus FF were on the same team, right?
No.
And the whole time, the other 3 teammates were trying to surrender. And eventually, Azap just, sent a message to their chat saying, look, me and the Baus aren't going to surrender, so you might as well just play it out. And then they ended up winning the game.
What do you think went through the other 3's mind when they ended up winning that game? Because
excuse me, I'm generally a pretty positive, optimistic person, but when it comes to League of Legends players, I don't have that same mindset.
I'll rephrase the question then,
okay,
if that's better. Do you think that experience led them to change their attitude and see the value in playing through the game? Or was the thought, man, if they had just surrendered, I could be halfway through my next game instead?
Knowing how League of Legends players are, they would probably justify it like, oh, it was a fluke. Oh, it's just because our enemies were bad, stuff like that, Like, usually,
okay.
I find that League of Legends players like to justify things because they don't like to take responsibility for being wrong.
Well, not here at PLC. Well,
Yeah,
we're going to throw that out there real quick because we are League of Legends players, but we're the better guys. So I think that's a good way to lead to the point, everybody, when we're playing, keep focus on the fact that you're playing either to have fun or to win, right? And surrendering won't help you win. Yes, you'll be able to queue into another game, but if you're judging your success based on how many games you play in a day, that doesn't really lead to anything, to be honest.
Hmm.
Especially if you get into the higher tiers of play. Have you seen the queue times for Masters and Challenger and stuff?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes. So if you're worried about time and how many games you play in a day, just it's not ever going to be a good number. So keep the
Mhm.
cool head, and I think that if we try and foster this idea that there is hope and there's a reason to look into these OP or garbage champions or strategies, that maybe we can calm down that hyperbole and have a better time of it.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
like, hmm?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, just to kind of go back to like that hyperbole and stuff. Like, just because you lost a match to a character doesn't automatically make that character broken. Okay,
True.
I don't see something as truly broken unless there is no counterplay to it. That's when something becomes broken.
Agreed.
Yeah, so like, trying to think of a good example. Back in the day, um, like Jax back in beta,
Mm,
there
yeah.
was a thing where you could buy where dodge chance used to be a stat in the game. You could buy so much dodge chance that you could not hit him with auto attacks or turret shots at all.
Yeah. And for players who are relatively new, the original runes system was not like it is today. There were
Hmm.
actually two different ways of buffing your champion pre-game. It was runes and masteries. Masteries looks very similar to what the runes are now, but old runes were little coins that you could purchase and you could build a page of these extra stats. And a lot of people would get all AD with 1% crit chance, and then they would put armor and I think it was mana or magic
Hmm.
resistance just to make their champions a little bit tankier. And then one of the one of the sets of runes you could get was dodge chance, and you could get some silly number of percent dodge chance because you could get what they were called steals. They were yellow, and then quintessences. They were big purple. And if you combined those with the original Ninja Tabby and Jax's E, like Zeno was saying, you could get like 80% dodge chance, so nothing could land.
Hmm.
Oh, man, old League was so much fun.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that. I see that and it's like, okay, that's broken. Or when LeBlanc was first released, at level 1, she could literally one shot you with just her jump. Like she didn't need anything else. She jumped on you and you died. And like it was so stupid and overpowered, they had to immediately remove her from the game and fine tune her numbers so she wasn't one shotting people at level 1. That's broken. There's practically no counterplay there. If you can work around something and there is counterplay, it's not broken. For example, people's immediate reactions with Mel's release is that she was
Hmm.
going to be broken because of the reflect, because it's a new mechanic. Well, guess what? That reflect's only up for like a second or so. Bait it out or work around the cooldown. It's a long cooldown.
What's funny is people were freaking out about that so much, but Fiora has had the exact same thing for years. And hold on, not the exact same thing, but the same
Similar concept.
mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if there's hard crowd control in there, she immediately stuns someone. So if you try and root her and she directs her W the right way, she can then stun an enemy. So like where did all this hype about Mel's W come from? Because it's the same mechanic.
I don't know. It's the only thing I can think of is instead of blocking it and then dealing damage to people and applying it if they're in their range, it's reflecting the actual spell itself. So who knows?
Yeah. I think that was really cool. But it seems the bigger complaint about Mel is that she pokes from such a long range and just stacks damage over time. It's that's what I've been hearing is the biggest frustration with the champion.
Okay, Remind me if I'm remembering this correctly, but didn't I say, like, with my experience of playing Mel, that I think her Q was going to be a bigger issue than her Reflect?
Yeah, that's exactly what you said.
Yeah, it's just free poke, and it synergizes ridiculously well with Arcane Comet.
There you go. And that will lead us into our patch discussion, I think, unless there's anything else you'd like to discuss.
No, I think that pretty much covers it on this topic. Just, no point to hyperbolize. Just focus instead on self-improvement, and that'll greatly change your mindset on the game and help you have a better time so you're not just getting upset and raging.
I agree. All right, so moving on to our patch. We don't go over everything in the patch notes, just highlights that we think will affect the PLC as a whole. And the first one, I don't think we really need to talk about very much because we don't get a lot of voracious Otacons in PLC. But I do want to talk about my distaste for how they have significantly nerfed the voracious Otacon. They've dropped the amount of extra gold per takedown. They increased the stasis time twice, and now instead of being 5.5 seconds total, it's 15 seconds, and it removes the whole value of the buff, in my opinion. And you've probably played it more than I have, but only 20, that's one caster minion worth of extra gold per kill instead of 40 gold. And now it's 15 seconds. Like, the whole point of getting the buff was so that you could be ridiculous and only suffer 5.5 seconds. Like,
Yep.
it's supposed to be strong. Like, I don't understand why everyone is so angry with it and why it had to be so drastic.
It returns to what we were talking about earlier. It's something new. People don't like new.
All right. Well, I don't want to harp on that too long. I want everyone that listens to PCP to know my distaste for that decision. I'm okay being wrong. Send me messages if you'd like, and help me understand. I think that would help me, is getting better perspective on it, because I admit that I'm not fully knowledgeable on it, and I'm happy to be wrong. But
I think
I am
what would have
expressed.
been my personal opinion is I think what would have been more appropriate is if the false life withdrawal stasis was 8 seconds, since that's how long it takes to back and recall anyway.
Now, see, that's a great compromise. I like that.
Because, it's pretty much the same thing in essence, where it's like, oh, you died, but instead of being punished by actually dying, we're going to treat it like you just recalled.
Oh, that's another thing that they nerfed, is that you were only supposed to get 100 gold for breaking the false life. Now it's 200 gold. And it's okay, you're not it's supposed to be frustrating. What are they going to do next? Are they going to reduce the damage that Baroned Up cannons deal? Are they going to increase the or reduce the execute threshold on Elder Dragon? Like, that's what's going on here, is they're just nerfing this super powerful buff, and I didn't like it.
If I had full control over this, I don't know how this would impact it. I would have kept the extra gold at 40 gold, made the withdrawal time 8 seconds to match recall, and then I would have done 150 gold for the for taking down someone. That way, you're giving a bit more and looking more towards satisfying those people without making it too much of a detriment for the people, because you should be rewarded for taking down Otacon with how much of a pain it is to take down.
Exactly. And so and look at that, I harped on it. I'm sorry.
You're fine. No
we'll
worries.
move on from there. The next one that I do think does really affect us is the attack speed cap increase. Did you hear about this?
Oh yeah, they buffed it to 3 autos per second, right?
Yeah. So for the entirety of League of Legends history, the maximum attack speed that you can get without something like Lethal Tempo or Kog'Maw W is 2.5 attacks a second. It has always been that way. And one of the most quote unquote OP things was when Lethal Tempo first came out and everyone could break it. It was silly. And so now that they're increasing it to 3 seconds, we have a lot of very strong marksman players in the PLC. And reading on the patch notes, that's one of the main classes they were targeting here, is trying to keep in line with the power creep in the game. And just very briefly, I want to get your thoughts A on that, and then B, is that the right move, or should they have nerfed the things that they call out here, like the effective health totals and ability damages?
Okay, so here's my thing with the attack speed cap. I am actually a fan of them increasing it to 3. And the reason for that is I feel like marksmen have been in a weird place for a long time, where they're either really strong or borderline useless, to the point where people are even replacing them with AP champions in the bot lane.
Okay.
Because of that, I feel like this is a good buff where they can help marksmen while keeping the marksman items where they're at, because if you adjust the marksman items too much, other champions become ridiculously powerful, like Tryndamere, Yasuo, anyone that can benefit from those crit items. But by focusing more on attack speed that will benefit range champions, that's a way to indirectly buff the class while still making it, consistent between champions and without needing to rely on those marksman items for that power.
I can see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because it's similar to how you have to be careful with tank items, because make tank items too strong and bruisers become a terror with them.
Because then they
Even-
deal too
yeah.
much damage for how tanky they get with their items.
Exactly.
Very good.
Yeah, so when it comes, like, that's something I think, we have these neat categories in game for the different items, like, oh, this is for the marksman class, oh, this is for the fighter class, but ultimately anybody can buy any item unless you've bought a previous item that restricts it. Like, you can't stack like 2 armor pen items, for example.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what this does is, because of that, you have to balance it around what any champion could do with any item.
Yeah. Okay, so that reasoning makes sense to me. I just worry that saying that they're doing it to keep up with power creep is not the right way, because we did the durability update because everyone was too bursty, and now here we are increasing attack speed because, oh no, our durability update went too far. I think eventually there's going to need to be a look at, do we just reduce the amount of effective health and ability damage eventually? I don't know. Just a thought to throw out there for future discussion when something else becomes a little too strong.
Mm-hmm.
The next on our list for the patch is Swain. Now, the last time I remember bringing up Swain as something to look forward to because we didn't see a lot until he got his most recent buff. And that's what Calavir played in our finals, and it looked super, super strong. And after that buff, he's getting another buff. And so already seeing him come in, I think there's no reason not to play this champion anymore. I think he's super, super cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting because, like, just looking up League of Graphs really quickly, we've actually seen a surge in Swain players recently this year. His popularity is at 6.5%, which is very high for a game with over 100 champions, so like
Mhm.
anything above 1% is above average.
Right.
So with that in mind, but his win rate, though, I think the reason why we saw these buffs is his win rate's still sitting around 50%.
Okay.
Yeah, so because of that, while we're seeing these adjustments, that might be Riot's reasoning as to why they do that. Obviously, I can't speak on their behalf in this situation, but
Mhm.
these buffs have definitely drawn attention to him, leading to more interactions and leading to more people playing him. So it's possible we could see some reverts in the future if his win rate goes too high. But in my opinion, though, just personal opinion, I think people have underestimated Swain for a long time, which I brought up earlier with you.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted him on our list of discussion, because I agree.
Because, people, they default, like, they hear about stacking champions and they default to Nasus, Vagar, Belveth,
Mhm.
Samira, Cho'Gath, champions like that.
Senna.
Um, yeah, Senna as well. I said Samira, but my brain meant Senna, my bad.
Okay.
Whoops. My
Kindred
bad.
is another one.
Can you blame me? They're both champions that start with S that are marksmen. I'm sorry.
No, I'm with you. I was
Anyway,
when you first said it, I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess you do stack her passive to get to her ultimate. All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. It just didn't even occur
yeah,
to me
that
that you meant
that was
someone
my
else.
bad. I meant Senna. But
Oh, very good.
Swain's a stacking champion. He stacks health.
Yep.
It synergizes ridiculously well with Riftmaker.
hmm Especially with this buff being he gets more health with his passive now. And so it's going to be even stronger in the future.
Okay, could I do one more quick rant as an aside from our discussion earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, there was another time where there was a season change, okay, where, Heartsteel was in the game. Leandri's no, it was Demonic Embrace used to be the item that gave you bonus health with your AP, okay? So that's why Cho'Gath players always built Demonic Embrace, okay? Because, bonus health while gaining constant health gave you that boost.
Mm.
There was one time where they had recently swapped that so that the passive for bonus health was on Riftmaker. So naturally, when I played Cho'Gath, I went, okay, I'll do Heartsteel into Riftmaker to get that bonus AP. And my team was pinging my Riftmaker build and spamming me, telling me that was a stupid buy because they didn't understand how the interaction had changed. But now it's one of the default items you buy on Cho'Gath.
Good for you. Don't let those haters tell you how to play.
Exactly. Yeah. So that just as an aside of people like, having those like closed-minded mindsets and not really building out. Sorry about that quick rant. Just something I remembered now with the
No,
stack
that's great.
health from Swain.
That's great. So I am looking at the time, and I think we got to wrap up. But before we do, the last thing from the patch that is catching my eyes, the buff to the domination keystones. That's Electrocute, Dark Harvest, and Hail of Blades. Now, I am a huge enjoyer of Electrocute. I think it's one of the coolest, and it's way stronger now. And I wonder if this will help bring champions back to assassins at the very least. I think Electrocute is great for the likes of Rengar procs it very quickly, Talon procs it very quickly. I know that Zed used to be the mainstay in the mid lane, but he could also really use it. The way that Hail of Blades is improved as well, we should see that on Xin Zhao. I think I love using it on Lucian, and yeah, I think it should help bring more champions like that into the meta because these numbers are not insubstantial. If you guys go and look, I think that they are very strong.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm a fan of the Electrocute change because I feel like it's not that Electrocute's been weak, but it's that Electrocute just kind of it's not that it's weak, it's just not as strong as other things. Like, why
Mhm.
take Electrocute when you could get more consistent damage from Arcane Comet? Or why take it if you can stack from Dark Harvest, just as random examples? Or, like, why
Right.
take Electrocute if you can increase your base damage through Conqueror.
True.
So I think this is a good change that'll really benefit people that already take Electrocute and get more people to consider building it. I'm not so sure about the Dark Harvest change.
Well, maybe we'll see it outside of ARAMs because, or in Pro at all, because I think that that's somewhere it has never been. So I'm hoping it's enough change to give some diversity into the, especially poke champions like Nidalee, Jace, and Xerath. I think would be great to get the Dark Harvest. I think that could look really, really fun.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Dark Harvest. I think the main issue with Dark Harvest that people have is, it has that potential to deal a ton of damage and to really ramp up, but people naturally are going to be worried about taking that risk. Why take a risk when you can get something more consistent?
Mm-hmm. And that's a reasonable reason not to take it, but I hope we see more.
Yeah, we'll
All
see
right.
what happens after this change. I think it'll be really good for AP supports and the bot lane mage supports because they're trying to poke anyway.
That's a good point. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you, Zeno, for joining me today.
Yeah, of course.
And
always happy to.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to PCP. We'll be back after our next tournament. That will be February 15th. That's at our new start time of 1 p.m. Pacific, so don't miss that. Also, we are making a shift from Twitch to be broadcasting on our YouTube page. There will be a formal announcement about that in our Discord server, so go ahead and take a look for that. Remember that you can find us by searching Progenitor Circuit on YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch. So sign up and play in our tournaments on StarGG. We'll see you there.
Yep, thanks again for watching and hope you have a great day. Thank you.